So next we're talking about the last type of the transport. It's called active transport. And it's movement of the ions and molecules across the cellular membrane into region of the high concentration from region or area of the low concentration. And it's assisted by the protein carriers, transmembrane protein, but because of this, it's called active because it's require energy, ATP molecules. So let's see how this works. And here shows cellular membrane. This is bilayer of the phospholipid. And we have this specialized transmembrane protein, and it will use energy, ATP molecule. During hydrolysis, it will be breakdown until ADP molecule and phosphate separate. And during this process, energy or ATP molecule will be produced, and it will use to move sodium and potassium in our example. So this is outside of the cell, and this is inside of the cell. So if we look on the concentration of the sodium, we will see that we have low concentration of the sodium inside of the cell. But if we compare a concentration of the sodium outside of the cell, we will see that it have high concentration. But this specialized protein in here, transmembrane protein, will move sodium from low concentration from the cell outside of the cell to the area of the high concentration. So it's moving it against its concentration gradient. And because of this, it's require energy. Same about potassium. But concentration of the potassium is low outside of the cell, and concentration of the potassium is high inside of the cell. But this sodium-potassium pump, how it's called, this transmembrane protein, will use ATP molecules and move potassium from the low concentration, from area of the low concentration, from outside of the cell, inside of the cell, whereas already high concentration of the potassium. So again, it's against the concentration gradient. And because of this, we need ATP molecules. So this transmembrane protein in here, called sodium-potassium pump, it moves simultaneous sodium in one direction and potassium in the other direction. And this is how it's showing here. So this is the carrier. So this is rhombs kind of molecules in here. This is show potassium. This is our potassium. And we have high concentration of the potassium already inside of the cell. But this sodium-potassium pump in here, it will move sodium inside of the cell against its concentration gradient from low concentration to high concentration. The other in here round molecules, so this is will be our sodium, and we have less sodium inside of the cell, but sodium-potassium pump in here have ability to attach sodium and move it after it's changed conformation. It will move it outside of the cell against concentration gradient. It's already a lot of sodium in here, but sodium will move out. And because of this, we need energy. And this type of the transport called active transport. So again, this is show our active transport on this diagram. And this is what we're moving against concentration gradient. And this is why we require to use energy, ATP molecule, in order to move against this concentration gradient. In the other hand, our passive transport in here, we have three types. diffusion, like gases, for example, yes, and they do not even require, like oxygen, they don't need any even transmembrane protein, they just easy diffuse on the other side of the membrane, across membrane, from area of the high concentration to area of the low concentration. Same passive transport happening with potassium in here, but it's required this transmembrane protein, so this is our facilitated diffusion, but same from area of the high concentration to area of the low concentration of the potassium moving. Then we have the other type of the facilitated diffusion, osmosis. So this is our water movements in here happening. No, in this case it could be water, or it could be on us glucose in here moving, how it's passing on the other side. Yeah, so this is glucose example movement, but again from area of the high concentration to area of the low concentration. And cells use active transport to get molecules that they need against even concentration gradient. If the cells need it, they will move it. And it's all to maintain homeostasis and normal functioning of the body cells. So in here shows this again sodium potassium pump, which moves this is red sodium molecules against the concentration gradient, and potassium molecules in here, it's a green one, they're moving against them, against concentration gradient through, and because of this it's require energy. So again, active transport when we're moving molecular ions against the concentration gradients, which is shown in here, from low concentration to area of the high concentration. So example of the active transport, again, protein pumps like this purple, which moving, for example, sodium and potassium, but also food molecules move through this also. So this process called endocytosis, when food molecules moving inside. And the other process which use also active transport called exocytosis. Exa means we're moving something outside, and this is example when cells produce waste products and they need to move out of the cell, from the cell, and we need ATP molecule for both endocytosis and exocytosis. So endo inside, so when we're moving food molecules inside of the cell. Exocytosis, exa outside, so we're moving something from cells. In both cases, we need ATP molecules to move it, and this is mean we need to use active transport. So in here show example of the endocytosis. So these big large cells, this is our immune cell in the body, and if it's moving between our cells in the body, and if it's find bacteria in here penetrate, this is red cells, this is all bacteria cells. So what happening, immune cells will produce this is extension of the cytoplasm and move through endocytosis and the inside of the cell for absorption and break down this, our immune cell break down and destroy this bacteria. The other example of the active transport, how it's used, it's in the kidneys. So in our kidneys, we have special this tubal structure called nephron, and through this membrane in this cell, sodium will be actively passed, pumping in the kidneys in here, tissue. And because of this, it will create very salty environment in here. And then water, when filtrate, moving through, water will be reabsorbed passively in here. And this is how our body can produce concentrated urine. So overall, active transport, example, phagocytosis, pinocytosis, sodium potassium pump, secretion of the substances into the bloodstream, or importance again. In animal and plant cells, amino acids, sugars, lipids need to enter cells by the protein pumps, and they all require active transport. And without active transport and spending ATP molecules, these items cannot diffuse, penetrate into the cell, or they can diffuse but very, very slow.